Okay, we gotta get the vibes right. Set the intentions. My intention is that you receive this in the highest version of the light and the love. And so it is. Welcome to. We begin the reading, The Law of One by Ra, a Humble Messenger. Beginning at page 15. One of the primary discoveries in Book 4 is the concept and purpose of the veil of forgetting that exists between the conscious and the unconscious minds in our current third density experience. Third densities closer to the center of our galaxy apparently did not have such a veil and therefore did not forget any event in any incarnation. This condition simplified each entity's experience and also the nature of that archetypical mind. Readers, therefore, should be aware that the questioning focuses on both pre-veil and post-veil experiences and the archetypical minds of both types of experience in order to get a better understanding of our current veiled experience in the third density of this octave of creation. As a result of our questioning, we have drawn our own images, the first 7 of which may be found at the back of this volume. The Ra contact continued for 106 sessions, which were printed into 4 books in the Law of One series. They are available at your local bookstore or from us. If you wish to receive our quarterly newsletter in which the best of our current channeling is published, please request that you be put on our mailing list. LL Research, Don Elkins, Carla Ruckert, James McCarty. P.O. Box 5195, Louisville, Kentucky, 40255, July 8th, 1983. I did want to skip through some of the stuff and kind of get to what they're actually talking about in regards to the archetypical mind, just to save the reader some time. Here we go. Session 76, February 3rd, 1982. Ra, I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. Page 17. I don't know if the pages matter. Anywho. Questioner. Questioner. I'm going to call the questioner Don. We know that Don is the questioner, and it's a little bit easier to say. It's like the whole thing's like questioner, Ra, questioner, questioner. Also, the social complex Ra, they introduce themselves using the prefix I am Ra. Just for the sake of the reading and to keep it nice and smooth, I'm just going to say Ra. Don, I am sorry that we had such a long delay between the last session and this one. It couldn't be helped, I guess. Could you please tell me the origin of the tarot? Ra. The origin of this system of study and divination is twofold. Firstly, there is that influence which, coming in a distorted fashion from those who were priests attempting to teach the law of one in Egypt, gave form to the understanding, if you will pardon the misnomer, which they had received. These forms were then made a regular portion of the learned teachings of an initiate. The second influence is that of those entities in the lands you call Chaldea, and Mesopotamia, who, from old, had received the, shall we say, data for which they called having to do with the heavens. Thusly, we find 2 methods of divination being melded into one, with uneven results. The, as you call it, astrology, and the form being combined to suggest what you might call the correspondence, which are typical of the distortions you may see as attempts to view archetypes. Don, then am I correct in assuming that the priest of Egypt, in attempting to convert knowledge that they had received initially from Ra into understandable symbology, constructed and initiated the concept of the tarot? Is this correct? Ra, this is correct, with addition of the Sumerian influence. Don, were Ra's teachings focusing on the archetypes for this logos and the methods of achieving a very close approach to the archetypical configuration? Is this correct, Ra? This is correct without being true. We of Ra are humble messengers of the law of one. We seek to teach, learn this single law. During the space-time of the Egyptian teach-learning, we worked to bring the mind complex, the body complex, and the spirit complex into an initiated state in which the entity could contact intelligent energy and so become teach-learner itself, so that healing and the fruits of study could be offered to all. The study of the roots of mind is a portion of the vivification of the mind complex. And, as we have noted, the thorough study of the portion of the roots of mind called archetypical is an interesting and necessary portion of the process as a whole. Don, is there, in Ra's opinion, any present-day value for the use of tarot as an aid in the evolutionary process? Ra, we shall repeat information. It is appropriate to study one form of constructed and organized distortion of the archetypical mind in depth in order to arrive at the position of being able to become and to experience archetypes at will. You have 3 basic choices. You may choose astrology, the 12 signs as you call these portions of your planet's energy web, and what has been called the 10 planets. You may choose the tarot, with its 22 so-called major arcana. You may choose the study of the so-called tree of life with its 10 sephiroth and the 22 relationships between the stations. It is well to investigate each discipline, not as a dilettante, but as one who seeks the touchstone, one who wishes to feel the pull of the magnet. One of these studies will be more attractive to the seeker. Let the seeker then investigate the archetypical mind using basically one of these 3 disciplines. After a period of study, the discipline mastered sufficiently, the seeker may then complete the more important step, that is, the moving beyond the written in order to express in an unique fashion its understanding, if you may again pardon the noun, of the archetypical mind. Don, would I be correct in saying that the archetypes of this particular logos are somewhat unique with respect to the rest of the creation? The systems of study that we have just talked about would not translate quickly or easily in any other parts of the creation. This is a very difficult question to state. Could you clear that up for me? Ra, we may draw from the welter of statement which you offer the question we believe you ask. Please re-question if we have mistaken your query. The archetypical mind is that mind which is peculiar to the logos under which influence you are at this space-time distorting your experiences. There is no other logos the archetypical mind of which would be the same any more than the stars would appear the same from another planet in another galaxy. You may correctly infer that the closer logi are indeed closer in archetypes. Don, since Ra evolved initially on Venus, Ra is the same archetypical origin as that which we experience here. Is that correct? Ra, this is correct. Don, but I'm assuming that the concepts of the tarot and the magical concepts of the tree of life, etc., were not in use by Ra. I suspect, possibly, some form of astrology was a previous Ra concept. This is just a guess. Am I correct? Ra, to express Ra's methods of study of the archetypical mind under the system of distortions which we enjoyed would be to skew your own judgment of that which is appropriate for the system of distortions forming the conditions in which you learn, teach. Therefore, we must invoke the law of confusion. Don, I'm going to ask some questions now that may be a little off the center of what we are trying to do. I'm not sure because I'm trying to, with these questions, unscramble something that I consider very basic to what we are doing. Please forgive my lack of ability in questioning, since this is a difficult concept for me. Could you give me an idea of the length of the first and second densities as they occurred for this planet? Ra, there is no method of estimation of time-space before timelessness gave way in your first density. To the beginnings of your time, the measurement would be vast, and yet this vastness is meaningless. Upon the entry into the constructed space-time, your first density spanned a bridge of space-time and time-space of perhaps 2 billion of your years. Second density is more easily estimated and represents your longest density in terms of the span of space-time. We may estimate that time as approximately 4.6 billion years. These approximations are exceedingly rough due to the somewhat uneven development, which is characteristic of creations which are built upon the foundation stone of free will. Don, did you state that second density was 4.6 billion years? Billion? Is that correct? Ra, this is correct. Don, then we had a third density that is, comparatively speaking, the twinkling of an eye, the snap of a finger in time compared to others. Why is the third density cycled so extremely rapidly compared to the first and second? Ra, the third density is a choice. Don, third density then, compared to the rest of the densities, all of them, is nothing but a uniquely short period of what we consider to be time and is for the purpose of this choice? Is that correct? Ra, this is precisely correct. The prelude to choice must encompass the laying of the foundation, the establishment of the illusion, and the viability of that which can be made spiritually viable. The remainder of the densities is continuous refining of the choice. This also is greatly lengthened as you would use the term. The choice is, as you put it, the work of a moment, but is the axis upon which the creation turns. Don, is this third density choice the same throughout all of the creation of which you are aware? Ra, we are aware of creations in which third density is lengthier and more space-time is given to the choosing. However, the proportions remain the same, the dimensions all being somewhat etiolated. I don't know that one. Etiolated. I have to put that one in. I'll put it up on the screen for the people in the back. Google that one. See what Google says. Etiolated. Let me put it on the thing.
Etiolated. Etiolated.
Etiolated. We learning words today. Big words. Okay. I never read it out loud, so some of this I was kind of, you kind of skim through it. The dimensions all being somewhat etiolated and weakened by the logos to have a variant experience of the creator. This creation is seen by us to be quite vivid. Don, I didn't understand what you meant by what you said as seen by you to be quite vivid. What did you mean? Ra, this creation is somewhat more condensed by its logos than some other logi have chosen. Thus, each experience of the creator by the creator in this system of distortion is, relatively speaking, more bright, or as we said, vivid. Don, I am assuming that upon entry into third density for this planet, disease did not exist in any form. Is that correct? Ra, this is incorrect. Don, what disease or form of disease was there, and why did this exist at the beginning of the third density? Ra, firstly, that which you speak of as disease is a functional portion of the body complex, which offers the body complex the opportunity to cease viability. This is a desirable body complex function. The second portion of the answer has to do with the second density, other cells of a microscopic, as you call it, size, which have in some forms long existed and perform their service by aiding the physical body complex in its function of ceasing viability at the appropriate space-time. Don, what I am trying to understand is the difference between the plan of the logos for these second density entities and the generation of what I would guess to be more or less a runaway array of feedback to create various physical problems to act as a catalyst in our present third density condition. Could you give me an indication of whether my thinking is anywhere near right on that? Ra. This instrument's physical body is becoming more distorted towards pain. We shall, therefore, speak to this subject as our last full query of this working. Your query contains some internal confusion, which causes the answer to be perhaps more general than desired. We invite refinements of the query. The Logos planned for entities of mind-body-spirit complex to gain experience until the amount of experience was sufficient for an incarnation. This varied only slightly from second density entities whose mind-body complexes existed for the purpose of experiencing growth and seeking consciousness. As the third density upon your planet proceeded, as has been discussed, the need for the physical body complex to cease became more rapidly approached due to intensified and more rapidly gained catalysts. This catalyst was not being properly assimilated. Therefore, the, shall we say, lifetimes needed to be shorter that learning might continue to occur with the proper rhythm and increment. Thus, more and more opportunities have been offered as your density has progressed for disease. May we ask if there are any further brief queries before we close? Session 77, February 10th, 1982. Ra, I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. Don, could you please give me an indication of the condition of the instrument? Ra, it is as previously stated. Don, was the instrument under attack just prior to this session? Ra, this is correct. Don, is there anything that we could do to help protect the instrument from these attacks prior to the session? Ra, this is correct. Don, what could we do? Ra, your group could refrain from continuing this contact. Don, is that the only thing that we can do? Ra, that is the only thing you could do which you are not already attempting with a whole heart. Don, I have 3 questions that the instrument asked me to ask, which I will get out of the way first. She wants to know if the preparation for her hospital experience could be improved if she should ever have to repeat it. Ra, all was done well with one exception. The instrument was instructed to spend space-time contemplating itself as the creator. This, done in a more determined fashion, will be beneficial at times when the mind complex is weakened by severe assaults upon the distortions of the body complex towards pain. There is no necessity for negative thought forms regardless of pain distortions. The elimination of such creates the lack of possibility for negative elementals and other negative entities to use these thought forms to create the worsening of the mind complex deviation from the normal distortions of cheerfulness/anxiety. Don, the instrument would also like to know if what we call tuning could be improved during times when we do not communicate with Ra. Ra, that which has been stated in regard to the latter question will suffice to point the way for the present query. Don, finally, she wishes to know why several days ago her heart rate went up to 115 per minute and why she had extreme pain in her stomach. Was that an Orion greeting? Ra, although this experience was energized by the Orion group, the events mentioned, as well as others more serious, were approximately caused by the ingestion of certain foodstuffs in what you call your tablet form. Abridged. Don, thank you. I would like to go back to the plan of this logos for its creation and examine the philosophical basis that is the foundation for what was created in this local creation and the philosophy of the plan for experience. I am assuming that I am correct in stating that the foundation for this, as has been stated many times before, is the first distortion. After that, what was the plan in the philosophical sense? Ra, we cannot reply due to the needed portion of your query, which has been omitted. That is, do we speak of this particular logos? Don, this is correct. I'm speaking with respect to this particular sub-logos, our sun. Ra, this query has substance. We shall begin by turning to an observation of a series of concept complexes of which you are familiar as the tarot. The philosophy was to create a foundation, first of mind, then of body, and then of spiritual complex. Those concept complexes you call the tarot lie then in 3 groups of 7. The mind cycle, 1 through 7. The physical complex cycle, 8 through 14. The spiritual complex cycle, 15 through 21. The last concept complex may best be termed the choice. Upon the foundation of the transformation of each complex with free will guided by the root concepts offered in these cycles, the logos offered this density, the basic architecture of a building, and the constructing and synthesizing of data culminating in the choice. Don, then to condense your statement, I see it meaning that there are 7 basic philosophical foundations for mental experience, 7 for bodily, 7 for spiritual, and that these produce the polarization that we experience sometime during the 3rd density cycle. Am I correct? Ra, you are correct in that you perceive the content of our prior statement with accuracy. You are incorrect in that you have no mention of the, shall we say, location of all of these concept complexities. That is, they experience within the roots of the mind, and it is from this resource that their guiding influence and leitmotifs may be traced. You may further note that each foundation is in itself not single but a complex of concepts. Furthermore, there are relationships betwixt mind, body, and spirit of the same location and octave. For instance, 1, 8, 15, and the relationships within each octave which are helpful in the pursuit of the choice by the mind, body, spirit complex. The logos under which these foundations stand is one of free will. Thusly, the foundations may be seen to have unique facets and relationships for each mind, body, spirit complex. Only 22, the choice, is relatively fixed and single. Don, then I am probably having a problem with the concept of time, since it appears that the logos was aware of the polarization of choice. It seems that this choice for polarization at the end of 3rd density is an important philosophical plan for the experience past 3rd density. Am I correct in assuming that this process is a process to create the proper or desired experience that will take place in the creation after 3rd density is complete? Ra, these philosophical foundations are those of 3rd density. Above this density, there remains the recognition of the architecture of the logos, but without the veils which are so integral a part of the process of making the choice in 3rd density. Don, the specific question that I had was that it seems to me that the choice was planned to create intense polarization past 3rd density so that experience would be intense past 3rd density. Is this correct? Ra, given that our interpretation of your sound vibration complexes is appropriate, this is incorrect. The intensity of 4th density is that of the refining of the rough-hewn sculpture. This is indeed, in its own way, quite intense, causing the mind-body-spirit complex to move ever inward and outward in its quest for fuller expression. However, in 3rd density, the statue is forged in the fire. This is a type of intensity which is not the property of 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th densities. Don, what I am really attempting to understand, since all of these 21 philosophical bases result in the 22nd, which is the choice, is why this choice is so important. Why the logos seem to put so much emphasis on this choice, and what function this choice of polarity has precisely in the evolution or the experience of that which is created by the logos. Ra. The polarization or choosing of each mind, body, spirit is necessary for harvestability from third density. The higher densities do their work due to the polarity gained in this choice. Don. Would it be possible for this work of our density to be performed if all of the sublogi chose the same polarity in any particular expression or evolution of a logos? Let us make the assumption that our sun created nothing but through the first distortion, positive polarity. There was no product except positive polarity. Would work then be done in the fourth density and higher as a function of only the positive polarization evolving from the original creation of our sublogos? Ra. Elements of this query illustrate the reason I was unable to answer your previous question without knowledge of the logos involved. To turn to your question, there were logi which choose to set the plan for the activation of mind-body-spirit complexes through each true color body without recourse to the prior application of free will. It is, to our knowledge, only in an absence of free will that the conditions of which you speak obtain. In such a procession of densities, you find an extraordinary long, as you measure time, third density, likewise fourth density. Then, as the entities begin to see the creator, there is a very rapid, as you measure time, procession towards the eighth density. This is due to the fact that one who knows not, cares not. Let us illustrate by observing the relative harmony and unchanging quality of existence in one of your, as you call it, primitive tribes. The entities have the concepts of lawful and taboo, but the law is inexorable and all events occur as predestined. There is no concept of right and wrong, good or bad. It is a culture in monochrome. In this context, you may see the one you call Lucifer as the true light bringer, in that the knowledge of good and evil both precipitate the mind-body spirits of this logos from the Edenic conditions of constant contentment, and also provided the impetus to move, to work, and to learn. Those logi whose creations have been set up without free will have not, in the feeling of those logi, given the creator the quality and variety of experience of itself, as has those logi which have incorporated free will as paramount. Thusly, you find those logi moving through the timeless states of what you would see as a latter space/time, to choose the free will character when elucidating the foundations of each logos. Don. I guess under the first distortion, it was the free will of the logos to choose to evolve without free will. Is this correct? Ra. This is correct. Don. Do the logi that choose this type of evolution choose both the service to self and the service to others path for different logi, or do they choose just one of the paths? Ra. Those, what you call early logi, which choose lack of free will foundations to all extents with no exceptions, founded logi of the service to others path. The, shall we say, saga of polarity, its consequences and limits were unimagined until experienced. Don. In other words, you are saying that originally the logi that did not choose this free will path did not choose it simply because they had not conceived of it, and that later logi, extending the first distortion farther down through their evolution, experienced it as an outcropping or growth from that extension of the first distortion. Am I correct in saying that? Ra. Yes. Don. Then did this particular logos that we experience plan for this polarity and know all about it prior to its plan? I suspect that this is what happened. Ra. This is quite correct. Don. In that case, as a logos, you would have an advantage of selecting the form of acceleration, you might say, of spiritual evolution by planning what we call the major archetypical philosophical foundations and planning these as a function of the polarity that will be gained in third density. Is this correct? Ra. This is exquisitely correct. Don. In that case, it seems that a thorough knowledge of the precise nature of these philosophical functions would be of primary importance to the study of the evolution of mind, body, and spirit. And I would like to carefully go through each, starting with the mind. Is this agreeable with Ra? Ra. This is agreeable, with two requests which must be made. Firstly, that an attempt be made to state the student's grasp of each archetype. We may then comment. We cannot teach/learn to the extent of learn/teaching. Secondly, we request that it be constantly kept before the mind as the candle before the eye, that each mind-body-spirit complex shall and should and indeed must perceive each archetype, if you use this convenient term, in its own way. Therefore, you may see that precision is not the goal. Rather, the quality of the general concept complex perception is the goal. Don. Now, there are several general concepts that I would like to be sure that we have clear before going into this process, and I will certainly adhere to the request that you have just stated. When our logos designed this particular evolution of experience, it decided to use a system of which we spoke, allowing for polarization through total free will. How is this different from the logos that does not do this? I see the logos creating the possibility of increase in vibration through the densities. How are the densities provided for and set by the logos? If you can answer this. Ra. This shall be the last full query of this working. The psychic attack upon this instrument has, shall we say, left scars which must be tended, in our own opinion, in order to maintain the instrument. Let us observe your second density. Many come more rapidly to third density than others, not because of an innate efficiency of catalysis, but because of unusual opportunities for investment. In just such a way, those of fourth density may invest third, those of fifth density may invest fourth. When fifth density has been obtained, the process takes upon itself a momentum based upon the characteristics of wisdom when applied to circumstance. The logos itself then, in these instances, provides investment opportunities, if you wish to use that term. May we inquire if there are any brief queries at this space/time? Don. Is there anything that we can do after this contact to increase the comfort as related to the psychic attack? Or is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable and to improve the contact in the present situation? Ra. The faculties of healing, which each has commenced energizing, may be used. The entity may be encouraged to remain motionless for a period. As it will not appreciate this, we suggest the proper discussion. The physical appurtenance called the sensor was just a degree off, this having no deeper meaning. We do ask for reasons having to do with the physical comfort of the instrument that you continue in your careful efforts at alignment. You are conscientious. All is well. We leave you, my friends, in the glorious love and light of the one Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. I am Ra, Adonai.